Hello, everybody. Happy May 26th, 2020. My name is Christopher Saunders, and this is the Connecticut Sports Talent Show, where we talk all things talents in Connecticut. And on today's show, we have another Sheehan coach, this time the offensive and defensive line coach, Teirnan Shea. Coach Shea, thanks so much for being able to come on today.
Thanks for having me, Chris. It's a pleasure.
It's a pleasure to always have coaches, who have been on championship teams. You were on one, we'll talk about that and kind of that ride and just the emotion and everything in just a little bit. But first, I just want to talk about yourself as a coach. Just tell me about the journey.
Yeah. You and I talked briefly. I played at Maloney High School under Coach Samazik and Coach Zito. So I had a good upbringing in terms of mentors. Played at Western Connecticut for Coach Loth. And right out of the gate, I didn't even graduated yet. My offensive line coach, he just texted me. He's like, "Hey, I got a job opened up for you in Bunnell." I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." I'm like, "I know where Bunnell is," and I had no idea where the heck Bunnell was. I just knew of it from obviously Coach Bruno's days and whatnot. So I'm like, "Yeah, tell Coach Cotto, I'm interested. I'll take it if he'll sit down with me and talk and everything works out." And it wasn't until like an hour later I looked up where Stratford was, and it was 45 minutes away. Um, so that's how I initially got into it, just kind of on a whim. It's something I always wanted to do. Um, I don't think I realized how quickly I'd get into it right after college. But it's been my life the past 6 years, and started at Bunnell, offensive defensive line coach right off the bat. Kind of got thrown into the fire. Coach Mignon took over my second year, and we kind of went on a run. We had that one down year, and that was kind of building the culture we wanted, building the program we wanted. And we just happened to get some dudes at the right time at 3 winning seasons in a row. And we kind of left it in Coach Jenkins' hands. And, you spoke with him. I speak with him every now and then. Found out afterwards we're related by marriage, which was kind of funny. But yeah, I love Bunnell, but it was time for me to go. And, I reached out to Pat Miller, who is now the head coach at Norwalk. I played 1 year with him at Plymouth State before I ended up transferring. And within a day, he got me face-to-face with Coach Ferrazzi, and it was kind of history from there.
Yeah, I'll be talking to Coach Miller in just a couple of days too, which will be fun because with him being a first-year head coach in Norwalk, I really kind of want to know that program because I don't even know much about them. And you mentioned Coach Jenkins too. He's done a lot in just that first, year plus with that program. And again, I had him on the show and being able to talk with him, and he's like a fireball almost, a ball of
For sure.
energy, and
Yeah,
really cares about the program and the community for Bunnell.
for sure. And then, I had the opportunity to stay. I talked to Coach Jenkins and Wayne for all the AD, and fully on board with the hire. Obviously, we would like to keep it in staff, but in terms of a leader, a mentor, and a better person, we couldn't have passed the torch, so to speak, to anyone better. So I'm happy for my guys that are still there. And
Now,
definitely happy for Coach.
now, looking at yourself before, you got into coaching, did you know when you were at Maloney that you wanted to be a coach, or was there any inclination that maybe you could be a coach one day?
Yeah, I was always one of those kids who's drawn plays, even if they made no sense whatsoever. We ran wing T under Coach Zito. Um, so there I was thinking wing T was God's gift to the universe, and coming up with things that probably made no sense. I'm sure I still have them downstairs. I don't throw out anything. And kind of being that lineman. I played center in high school for 3 years, so kind of be that line leader, so to speak. I had kids next to me, some of my best friends, ironically, who had no idea what the plays were even 3-4 years into the program. And it's funny, we were scrimmaging Cheshire. That was one of our routine scrimmages Coach Mazik had installed. Um, and I'll never forget it. We're running 25 superpower, which is basically just power right. And you see it on film. We have one guard going the right way, and the other guard going the wrong way. And you just see it. They're looking at each other going like this, trying to find out what the heck happened. And, that was our rough introduction to our sophomore year right off the bat. But yeah, I think I definitely wanted to be a coach. I've always had that mentality. I've always been more interested um, in the mental aspect of it. I love playing, but once I was done, my body's done,
Mhm.
um, and it's just been a thing ever since I can remember. It's something I've wanted to do.
The wing tee is a very, between that and the double wing, I mean, you have the
Hmm.
hammer too. I mean, I
Yep.
see that entirely in the NVL because I broadcast for the NVL, and it's
Yeah.
definitely if it's very structured, and if you haven't gone through it and you're trying to teach it for the first time, it's not something that's easy. I mean, just like you mentioned, you had one offensive lineman going this way, another going that
Yeah.
way. It's hard, and you're talking about high school kids who now, I mean, for high school coaches like yourself and others, the amount of time that you have with the players is so small, and the learning span for them is also you only have them for a certain amount of time before you kind of lose them.
Yeah. I mean, we lucked out in a sense. Um, Coach Zito had been there, I believe, 2 years um, prior to my freshman year, and we ran the traditional Platt and Maloney Power Eye, which Coach Bruin still has in his back pocket, I'm sure. Just knowing him, and we lucked out first year in Wing T. We ended up making the state championship game in Double M against New Canaan, and didn't work out in our favor. But I mean, it was kind of we just like I said before, we kind of just ran with what we had, and we went from there. And the next year, we went 7-3. So there was a lot of learning curves. I think it was more the athletes in Meriden kind of saved us. So when we were making mistakes in the early stage, like you're talking about how hard it is to learn,
Mhm.
um, I think our athletes just got it done for us, and it kind of continued for 3 years.
Now, with all the success that you had at Maloney, you also had, the chance to play against and with a lot of current, former, so on and so forth, NFL guys. Do you ever
Yeah.
look back on that and say, like, especially now because of the quarantine, you
Hmm.
really have a lot of time just to reflect and you go, wow, I played against Aaron Hernandez. I played with John Jenkins and, so on and so forth.
Yeah. It's really just funny. I mean, it's humbling to a certain degree, but I don't ever think about any of those people, even Aaron, as anything other than those kids I saw, when I was a kid. Um, I played with Seth DeValve, who's a tight end for the Jaguars in youth, and he was like a 5'6", 150-pound unassuming kid. But I think when he got drafted, the first thing I kind of thought was, okay, the leadership is still. He had that leadership even at, like I said, 5'5". It just, it's kind of humbling. And even John Jenkins, people ask me all the time, the 6'4", 350-pound guy, is he intimidating? Is he this? Is he that? I was like, no, this is the kid who come over my house and take like 3 turkey sandwiches from my mom and just sit down and chill and watch, play a video game and pet the dog. Like it. So it's very humbling. And reflecting on it, especially John, he's just such a good guy. And I don't talk to Seth. I really haven't talked to Seth since we were kids, but just seeing the work he does with charities and whatnot, people like that, it humbles you having grown up with them and seeing what they're doing with their lives, regardless of fame and money, and especially now during the quarantine. It's something positive to look at.
You mentioned how like a lot of times between Jenkins and DeVal and all that, maybe there was some things where you could tell, okay, maybe they have a chance to play at the next level. And then you had others where you mentioned with DeVal for Jacksonville, 5'6", and really you didn't anticipate him taking that next, gigantic leap. Was there
Yeah,
anybody that either beyond those two that you played with or played against that you felt like, wow, this dude definitely has a shot to play and that he impressed you?
for sure. We had a running back at Maloney, Jerome Bunch, and a lot of those kids, even now, they're all related to Rashawn Spikes. The record setting running back who
Mhm.
played for I want to say the Ravens. I'm probably wrong. Practice squad for the Ravens. But you talk about a kid, as a freshman, 6'2", 210, just ran like a deer. Um, and JB's a year older than me, so I kind of got to see it. Going into the program, this is a kid who works hard, so it set that precedent for us. But like it's just not even fair. Like when he's in open space, it's just not even fair. Um, I got to play against him at Plymouth too, so that was pretty fun. My first year, he was at Mount Ida College. Um, but yeah, you see, growing up in like Meriden not an inner city by any stretch, but I compare it to the Waterburys based on demographics and whatnot. You see these athletes every day, and it's a matter of having the right coach, the right mentors, just the right personnel to kind of guide them. But JB is definitely one of them. And when Aaron was at Bristol Central, yeah, they had Matt Coyne, who I thought for sure was going at least to like a FCS school. Um, just an overall cannon of an arm, tough kid. They had a running back too, and I can't remember his name for the life of me. I believe his last name was King, but he was about 5'8", 210. He was just a bowling ball of a kid. So I think a lot of those rivalries, kind of those stick in your head even more. So a lot of those kids I'll always remember as kids who, they were something special. Um, Even UConn had a tight end from Newington we played against, I believe Spencer Parker. And just a kid, athlete. He ended up playing Division I volleyball and then got bored with that, I guess, and decided to walk on at UConn and started for at least a year, but I think 2 years. So, I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky to have grown up where I grew up
Mhm.
and have met the people, played against people I've met. Um, so for sure, there's definitely, I could go on for hours about kids I played with at Maloney who just had the talent and for whatever reason, classroom wise didn't matriculate, or, just couldn't get it done mentally on the field, which is obviously a big aspect to it. But yeah, definitely a lot of kids who I could have seen play at the next level.
I just want to go back to what you said about Platt or about Meriden itself, about how there was so much talent, and because of the different high schools and such, it's kind of separated. Waterbury's the same way, and I was talking with Coach Bruin, who's the coach at Platt, the head coach, and he mentioned how Meriden, again, like you said, there's a lot of talent, but it's separated amongst different schools. And I brought up how imagine if you could combine that into just one school. Just imagine the kind of high octane teams that you would have, not just for football, but for baseball and basketball. And, it's a shame that they have to be separated because it's almost like you're kind of, you're in that scenario where if you're at Maloney and you see a tight end at Platt or the quarterback at Platt, and you're like, oh, if we just had those two, we'd be a state team. Or if we had that running back,
For sure. For sure. And that's something I've talked about almost every other week since I was 16 years old. You see people in passing, man, what if this happened? What if that happened? And it speaks volumes to even my senior year. We had John Jenkins. Um, we had a lot of injuries, so record-wise didn't work out. But we had a kid named Joe Petit who was 6'4", 275. And then on Platt's side, they had Mike Dargan, who's actually a coach at Maloney now. He was a Maloney kid, and the rules were different back then, so kids could just transfer. And he ended up transferring his junior year, started his senior year, and kind of scared the crap out of us in the Stoddard Bowl. He wasn't anything fun to try and tackle, but they had him, and then they had a tight end, Derek Drag, who ended up playing baseball at New Haven. Kid was like 6'3", 270, could run. So you talk about the talent of Meriden, and I see it now. I mean, Platt has Salas, Maloney has Tarver, and the list goes on and on. Where 1 year Maloney might have a deficit at one position, Platt will have the upper hand, and so on and so forth. And it's almost not fair to think about what could be. Um, Talking to even guys you were rivals with is kind of fun. Just seeing, our line was so good that year. If only we had this quarterback. If only we had Dargan. We had a good quarterback, but he was 5'5". If we had Dargan, we would have been even better. Um, but the talent's immense. I have a lot of friends from Waterbury. Um, Obviously, Coach Ferrazzi coached at Kennedy, went to Kennedy. I have teammates who are from Bridgeport, who are from, Waterbury, and just dominant players. Um, and it just happens, the most populated cities just have to have more than one school. I mean, it makes sense, but the whole fantasy team idea is something definitely to look at.
Now, Coach, I just want to go into now your time with Sheehan because you coach the O line and the D line. Which position? I know you said you played center. So is that, is the offensive line kind of more of like a love for you, or is it both the offensive and defensive line that you kind of share your passion with?
It's definitely offensive line. I love I love defensive line, but having played offensive line in college, you kind of just fall in love with that one position. I was coaching tight ends and linebackers this past year. Coach Miller was our line coach. And that was the first year I'd never coached linemen in my 6 years, so I was kind of lost, especially with the way things we do it at Sheehan. It's very detail oriented. It's not and not to fault any other programs. That things work for other programs, it might not work for some, but
Mhm.
the amount of detail that goes into just the basics, you know, it's overwhelming. Um, it's fun, it's a challenge, but being thrown into the fire with someone as fierce as Coach Ferrazzi is, um, I was in shell shock coaching, outside linebackers of all things. Um, but just get back to your question, I played center for most of my life, even in youth. Moved to guard my senior in high school, and then in college, I was more of the sixth man, the rotational. You need to learn everything, and here I am at 5'10", 5'11" in cleats. Am I on that roster where you lie? You're always 5'11". You're always taller than you are. So having to play tackle against kids who are 6'4", 6'5", you learn how to get by, and you kind of learn how to adapt. And I think that aspect of it definitely, allowed me to fall in love with it more, because you learn the intricacies, and you learn how to succeed at a position. And this goes for everything. You learn how to succeed no matter what position you play. But just having been there and knowing the ins and outs of it, I feel like I can relate to anybody I coach and kind of give my wisdom in that sense.
I really want to dive into what you said about Coach Ferrazzi about how everything is structured and just that it's
Yep.
different. And no disrespect to other programs, there's just something different about that with Sheehan. Tell me
Hmm.
about being under Coach Ferrazzi and just kind of give me the daily, just give me, let's say it's just a normal day as far as
Yeah.
practice goes. Just take me into that.
Yeah. Usually we get there 2:30. Um, I work in North Haven. I work in special ed, so it's an 11-minute drive for me. It's not but we have one coach who gets there at 3. He teaches in Middletown. Practice at 3:10. We go right into our dynamic warm up. We go right into our offensive circuits if it's an offensive day, our tackling circuits, takeaway circuit if it's a defensive day, install if we have anything to install. So it's a normal program, but we stick to the structure. We stick to what is on schedule. We don't deter. Obviously, if there's something we can't control, we go with it. But just and he's a perfectionist, and I say that in the best way possible. Um, the kids look up to him. I look up to him, and I'm not that much younger. He's a great role model to have. Um, just the amount of love he has for this game, and he's not a Wallingford guy. You know that
Hmm.
he loves this town. He loves these kids, and it just resonates. So when you have someone who is as detailed as he is and as fierce as he can be with the way he wants things run, the kids know he's all in for them. We know he's all in for us as a staff. So it's easy to reciprocate, all the way down from the 13-year-old ninth grader to, the 65-year-old assistant coach on staff. Um, and I think that kind of structure, it helps the kids for sure. We all know we'd all be lost without structure when we were kids, but it helps me, 28-year-old man, just kind of navigate life. He's like I say, he's a great role model to have. I'm sure you'll talk to Coach Miller about it when he's on. It's just something. that I think I couldn't have had this experience anywhere else. I say I was lucky to fall into Bunnell's lap and be with the guys I was with. I was even luckier to fall into Sheehan's lap and kind of learn from someone who's grinded from day one, not having that program in place, not having the resources in place to where we now have. Everyone's kind of familiar with the way we run our offense. It's we run it through our youth clinic and whatnot. The youth program runs it. Into having the booster club we have, the booster club support we have, the parent support we have, the alumni, the you name it, administration, the student body support. It's just insane to see such a detail oriented program come to fruition. And obviously I wasn't a part of it for more than a year, but it's even that in a sense is humbling. It's just great to see.
The way you talk about the program and Coach Farazi and all that, it kind of almost seems like that winning the championship is not a surprise because you think about all the hard work, all the dedication, just, the time and everything kind of put into that championship season last year. You know, did you have a feeling, going into last season that maybe there was something special with that team?
Yeah, I mean, in the interview process, Pat and John, they talked about it, and as an interviewee, you're like, yeah, yeah, cool, like for sure. You have no idea, what the program's about or what the kids are about, and then you walk into the first lifting session in December. Oh, I got hired in March. So that was wrong, but you walked in the first lifting session in March, and there's 30 kids there, and we're not a big we're in S school.
Mhm.
There's 30 kids there, and everyone's pushing each other. They're laughing, they're joking, but they're getting their work done. And then they can have that mindset where we have a team picnic every summer, and they're still talking football, they're talking weights. And you kind of saw that camaraderie in the weight room, you saw that camaraderie outside of school. And then we get to the CCSU camps, and the first day of summer camp for us, and you saw it all the way down to the ninth grade level. You have a ninth graders, here we're gonna run a 300 shuttle, like you've never done this before, but here you go, and you have them grinding, you have them hustling, and it's because of the leadership we had. Everyone likes to talk about Jordan Davis and Terrence Bogan, and with for obvious reasons, they're great kids. I can't stress that enough. As great of athletes as they are, they're great kids. But we had the Braden McCarthy's and Mickey Demings, Garrett Malampy, an all-state basketball player who came out for the first time, and it trickled down to him being a leader right away. It took a couple of weeks, but he became a leader for us. And I think around like week 3 of camp, I was just like, holy crap! Like I've seen talent before, but I haven't seen this camaraderie. I haven't seen this. They knew they were going to win. Um, and we got, fast forward to the playoffs. It was kind of like, I don't want to sound cocky because that's not what it is at all. But you get to the playoffs and you're like, this is like another game. And we get to Ansonia, and I feel like I'm going to throw up. Um, it's 22-22, fourth quarter. I feel like I'm going to throw up. And the kids are just sitting there straight faced, and our number one tight end, our number one lead blocker on our runs, he gets hurt. He's 6'2", 250. We got the other two kids in who start on defense. They're about 5'8", 5'9", 190 pounds. There was no fear, and here I am panicking, and they're fine. They're loving it. They're fine. And then you get to the championship game, we're down 14-0 right away. And you kind of sit there, you're like, okay, like this is different. And they just didn't quit. And it's that mentality, instilled by Farazi. And they bought into it from day one. The story's been told so much, through the local papers and whatnot. They bought in eighth grade. They won the state championship in eighth grade. And they came in with that mentality that, this is what they were going to do. And it took a few years. They had to build the program even more. Um, but yeah, I knew right away, and it's so funny to say because you think when you're at other schools, you think you have a chance, but we knew we had a chance, and we knew this was it. This was the year we could get it done.
Coach, I really do appreciate you coming out. We've just about run out of time, but it's great to be able to kind of look back at your coaching history. And also, I talked to Coach Farazi about the state championship run, and, it never gets, tiresome enough to be able to tell me in your eyes how you viewed the championship run. And, the journey ended up being a championship again for you guys. And once again, congratulations.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate what you do for the community of coaches and players. I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Anytime. That'll wrap things up here in the Connecticut Sports Talent Show. So until next time, stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day, everybody.